Welcome back to the Paul Garson Show. We're entering the second half of our 2-hour program. Special programming this night deals with an event that took place 36 years ago. It was the sudden and violent death of President John F. Kennedy. We have two researchers with us that have spent many years delving into this deep, dark hole of mystery. We have on the phone from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Associate Professor John McAdams. Professor, you still there with us?
I'm still here.
Okay. Sitting next to me at Cyber Radio TV studios is Greg Burnham, who has just perhaps traveled one of the most dangerous 100 miles in America. Professor McAdams explained to us that his research, which has more or less convinced him that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, that he fired from the book depository, that he squeezed off those shots, that he hit his targets, and that he was not part of any conspiracy to eliminate the president. Greg, what's your point of view?
I think maybe a good way for me to approach it would be to say that not only do I not believe that Oswald was involved in the conspiracy, he didn't fire a shot that day. There's no proof that he did fire a shot, and I think it's important to start there. You know, he would have been a defendant had he lived, and a defendant does not have to prove that they're innocent. Mr. McAdams or Mr. Nolan, which is it? Is it Paul?
Adams, yeah.
It's Paul Nolan, right?
No, it's John Adams, Professor McAdams.
Oh, this is the same guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, same guy. Anyway, it's just that as a defense attorney, as an example, you're not in a position of having to prove that the defendant is innocent. The prosecution has to prove that the defendant is guilty. And if you can't place the weapon in the person's hands, and nobody's ever been able to do that.
Were there any fingerprints on the gun?
No, sir.
No fingerprints?
No fingerprints. When it left, pardon me, Mr. McAdams, when it went from the Dallas PD over to the FBI, they didn't find anything either. It came back, and then somebody found a palm print on the barrel end of the stock someplace.
What's the chronicle on that, Professor?
J.C. Day, who was the evidence guy for the Dallas cops, found the palm print on a Friday evening. He lifted it. He thought there was enough left on there for the FBI to discover. Then the evidence was pretty much ripped out of his hands when he was summarily ordered to turn it over the weekend.
Right. Now, you know, all kinds of crimes are being solved by DNA analysis now. Mm-hmm. Is there any way the DNA could factor into this?
Certainly.
How could that be done?
Well, I mean, I imagine if you were able to get exhumation of different people's remains, that would be a good way to start. You know, one interesting problem that's recently happened when John Connally, the governor that also was wounded in the assassination, at the point that he passed on and he was going to be buried, the FBI did not approach his widow, Nellie Connally, with the request to examine the fragments that were left in his wrist and his right. Okay, they approached him. Excuse me. She was approached by the FBI at the funeral. So I imagine there's no cover-up going on here. You know, they imagined that the family would be real in a good mood there at the funeral to say, sure, before we put them in the ground,
call them up.
They got to do go for it. Before the funeral, the Connollys are in fact contemptuous of conspiracy theorists back in the 1960s. Connolly made a speech, so the Connolly family, if it's their say-so, whether Connolly gets exhumed or whether the bullets, whether the fragments could have been removed from his body before he was buried, were simply uncooperative, not surprising.
Well, unfortunately, though, the Connollys do not direct the Justice Department of the United States, nor do they direct the Constitution, nor do they set a time limit on the statute of limitations for murder. And so if the man is passed away, with all due respect to him and all due respect to the family, because I do understand people's wishes and how they feel, the difficulty here is this: what takes precedence? What takes precedence? Is it important for America to understand what occurred on November 22nd, 1963, and if Commission Exhibit 399 shows, as we know, that there is not enough lead missing from the bullet to account for what's even left remaining in his body, that is incredible evidence. And there is absolutely no reason whatsoever that you should even bring up the Connollys not liking conspiracy theorists, because, my friend, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm an American.
It's perfectly true. Unfortunately, there's just not the stomach in official Washington because the Kennedy simply refused to do that. What would they prove? We could do neutron activation analysis on them. What if we found that they matched Commission Exhibit 399? All the conspiracists would refuse to accept that. We have a bunch of fragments taken from Connollys in the surgery at Parkland Hospital on November 22nd. They were matched with Commission Exhibit 399 using neutron activation analysis, and none of the conspiracy people believe that, and in fact, almost nobody knows about it.
Yeah, the difficulty here, John, is you've literally, in my opinion, and again, I would say all due respect, but honestly, I can't say that and mean it. The difficulty here is you've changed the onus of responsibility, again, to blaming the victims, and you have associated the Connolly situation with the Kennedy situation. If you didn't do one favor, other than quoting hearsay, or what media has said, or what some...
They've never said it publicly, but perhaps you could explain to me why Congress, when it set up the Assassination Records Review Board, explicitly exempted the autopsy photos and x-rays in the National Archives from being classified by the Review Board as an assassination record. Why did Congress do that?
Well, let me interject something here. Just from an average citizen's point of view, it seems to me that elements of the government realized that the American people were going through an incredible trauma. They wanted any way possible to have closure on this case, whether it was the truth or not. And they sought to eliminate any more doubt, anything more that would tear the fabric of the society apart. So some well-meaning, supposedly well-meaning individuals sought to obfuscate whatever the real truth may be, because neither case has been proven to anyone's satisfaction. I mean, every now and then a book is written, the case closed, and that's supposed to mean the case is closed, and that's just the title of a book. Because post-traumatic syndrome, I think, that still reverberates through America.
I think that's a very good analysis that you just made. In my opinion, the importance of this isn't for us to run around and prosecute quote-unquote guilty parties. As you rightfully said, many of them probably have passed on. Certainly, most of them, in fact, may have passed on. What my interest, and I know why I do what I do with this, is that it affects us today. And you were basically saying that. In other words, if it was so cut and dry, why is it that it's still in the back of everybody's head? And it's not just because it was a heinous crime. It wasn't just because it was a public execution. You see, it's because it doesn't work. It affects us today.
I want to say Burnham believes the Lifton White Mantic version of Zapruder film tampering.
Jack White's a close friend of mine, sir, and Jack White's opinion on this is not 100% in line with the other two gentlemen. I'm not saying he disagrees or agrees with them. He's done his own work. They've done their own work. Now, do I agree with them that it was tampered in a big way, that changed it? Well, absolutely. And it's not because he said it, and it's not because anybody else said it. It's because I've seen the film.
Managed to let the authentic film out so that people like you could get to see it.
Because the evil minions that are in the Warren Commission apologist group were going to be there to say exactly what you just said. Can I answer your question, John?
Sure.
I know why I do what I do with this particular case. There are people in the world that believe that the world is flat, perhaps, let's just say, as an example. Maybe in the Congo someplace. Why is it that one wouldn't devote their life to teaching those people that the planet is a sphere? In other words, my point is why do you spend any time saying, hey, the official story is true? See, I understand that if the official story isn't true, and that it's having an effect on us today, and in the faith that we have in ourselves and the faith that we have in our government, and the things going on in the street that you can buy, that a man took a 1940 Mannlicher Carcano, fired 3 shots in 5.6 seconds, hit on the first and the third shot, missed with one. Not only Kennedy did he miss, he missed the car, he missed the entire street. It was down by the triple underpass where it hit. Okay? The FBI took the piece of curving. They're the ones who determined that it was a fresh bullet, not a smear. Okay, what you're saying is disinformation. What was said by the FBI is that that was a bullet that hit there. Period. My problem is this, is how is it that you can possibly spend the time that you do coming on a show like this to talk to the American people and to me to say that the case was solved and let's let it go. See, there's a reason for me to do it, because if it wasn't solved and if there has been a cover-up and if it does affect our lives, then it's important that we know about it. But if it's not the case, and if it is case closed and it is all over,
it is solved.
then why do you come on the air and go places and dispute that, hey, I'm telling you guys, gravity really does exist?
I don't like nonsense. I don't like falsehoods. I'm sort of a debunker by temperament. When I see a lot of people saying things that aren't true, my tendency is to debunk it. You could say the same thing to journalists who are in the business of debunking alien abduction accounts. You could ask them, why are you doing this? There must be something sinister about your wanting to do this, to disagree with it.
Like a lot of us when we heard the Warren Commission report. Still there, John?
I'm still here.
I mean, that's what happened, I think, when many people read the Warren Commission report.
Well, if it was not nonsense, you I never could disagree with you. I would say I have the same right to disagree. I read, Jim Harr's book Crossfire or Garrison's On the Trail of the Assassins. If I find it to be nonsense, my impulse is to debunk it.
So you are the opinion, then, obviously, that this case is solved and closed.